Hi and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast. We're coming to you from SITS at the moment. I'm Kirsty McGowan and I'm here with Suresh GP.
Hello everyone.
James Finister.
Hello everyone.
And right now we're talking to the great Mark Smalley. Welcome, Mark.
Good afternoon. Nice to be here again.
Yes.
Mark, you are there all over the place. I saw you in ITSM Norway. You're going to be in August in Australia. Then you're going to be in November in the US. What are you doing here? You've been all over the place.
And you've forgotten the most important thing. We are going to be doing a road show in India.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really excited about doing that in July.
Yeah, next month.
But how does SITS weigh among the other conferences that you've been across?
Well, it's the size of the event, I think, that makes it a lot different to other conferences. You really get lots of people around the place. Makes it exciting. And I think I do have the privilege of attending and speaking and talking to communities all around the world. It's interesting to reflect on what are you actually seeing at these events. And whereas 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly the focus was mainly on how do we plan stuff, how do we describe processes to get things organized. You're seeing the shift towards people, towards the realization that you can't plan everything, you can't process everything. It's more about multidisciplinary collaboration and the great stuff that is in the DevOps movement, which we all talk about at conferences like these, but is not, if you talk to normal people, working in IT, Dev what? Most of the people I talk to when I do as a consultant, do regular workshops with normal IT departments, they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
But they have so much to gain from the values behind DevOps. I think Gene Kim, who lots of people know as one of the authors of the Phoenix Project, one of the great books, if you want to understand DevOps, read the Phoenix Project. Gene Kim came up with a great definition of DevOps, which is a mix of cultural norms and technical practices that speed up the flow from business development operations without compromising the reliability, the solidity of IT operations. And that mix of cultural norms and technical practices, we used to talk about the technical practices all the time. We're now increasingly talking about the mix of cultural norms, and I find that very, very encouraging.
So talking about cultural mixes, SITS is an interesting show. Say it's big, but what I think is interesting as well is you've got different audiences here. We have got those, I think you call them normal people in IT. And you've got the gurus and the great deep thinkers like yourself. I think you're getting involved in the IT paradigmologists.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, actually, sometimes at this show it feels like oil and water, that we don't get that cultural mix, that people don't get the benefit of talking to different cultures, one that they grow in. Is that your feeling?
Well, if you get onto the topic of conferences themselves, we still have lots of one-way traffic. Experts talking about stuff, transmitting it one way. Whether it's actually coming across or how it's coming across is another. So sort of I don't know whether it's oil and water, but I'm very encouraged again by trends you see in conferences, like the initiative that started off in Denmark was propagated again in the Oslo ITSM, what we call the service Bazaar, where you have no PowerPoints, workshop format, 1.5 to 2 hours, people talking and discussing, the presenter being more the facilitator, getting a dialogue going. And I use the word dialogue rather than discussion with the percussion, which sort of
It was a really great day. It was almost like a create your own conference sort of a day. You could pick the order in which you did your sessions, which ones you wanted to talk to, and then once you got into those sessions, you were actually involved. You were part of the session rather than an audience.
Yes, bring your own content.
Yeah, and it was sort of like, I guess, from what I saw from my viewpoint, was that the presenters were getting as much out of the sessions as the people who were sitting in there, because people were sharing their stories and really contributing to the conversations rather than sitting there listening to a presentation.
No, that's true. That takes me on to another topic I'd like to share with you. As some of you know, I think I've been involved in the Taking Service Forward initiative from the start, almost from the start. And we are thinking about what is we're in the service economy, but we still talk about service as if we were in the Industrial Revolution, talking about goods. I make something, I give it to you, I add value, and I give it to you, rather than in service, we provide a consumer, we co-create value. If you take that metaphor into conferences, that in the workshop, you got the presenter contributing, but the others contributing, and both parties taking something out of it. So you not only create value for the provider, for the consumer, but the provider also gets value out of it.
Yeah, I guess I think you and I have talked before about, it's just as important to be a good customer as it is to be a good service provider. So sometimes our customers need to be educated as to how to be a good customer, and actually giving that feedback back. So often people go away after they're not happy with a service and just tell everybody else, but they don't come back to you as a provider and say, hey look, I wasn't really happy, this is what I think you could do better. So getting that two-way dialogue is something we need to do a lot more.
And if you're a consumer, I'm a provider, I expect that you as a consumer participate actively in that process. If, and I'm flogging this example to death, but if I were to cut your hair, if we have a certain amount of trust in our relationship, you allow me to cut your hair, you'd have to sit still when I cut your hair, otherwise it would go wrong. So we're co-creating something. And if you say after the service act, which is cutting the hair, if you complain that it's too short, it goes to you, couldn't you told me earlier? So getting that feedback quickly, which enables both parties to co-create value better.
Of course, if you're British, you just turn around and say, oh no, it's superb.
Their British politeness.
But actually, it does raise an interesting question about customer satisfaction, because we see an industry which is dominated by customer satisfaction metrics. Yet somehow there's the feeling, and things come out very much at this conference, but we're not measuring real customer satisfaction. So how do we get to that? How do we get to a sense of whether or not the customer really is happy with the haircut?
I don't know. That's a tricky one. That's a tricky one.
Was it the Net Promoter Score and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's. But I think we often get confronted with, after we've bought something. I saw an email invite to review a hotel that I stayed with last week in Toronto. Sometimes you get asked the wrong questions. I suspect we've all had that. You want to, or I think it was the airline asking their opinion of the audio visual stuff. Yes, are you satisfied? Yes or no? I don't use it. So what do I answer?
Yeah, well, I did one of those hotel questionnaires a couple of weeks ago after my stay in Auckland for the New Zealand conference. And they said, would you recommend it to someone else? Well, yes, I would. Were you happy? No, I wasn't. I was very unhappy because I completely messed up my bill. But that's not to say the actual stay in the hotel was bad. But, so it's a matter of asking the right questions if you want to get the real feedback. I wasn't happy, but I would still recommend them.
And I joked about being this perspective because you're going to India soon, as Suresh said, you travel the world. What works in one culture may not transfer to another culture. Not just geographically, but for instance, with some of my major clients, you may move from talking to the marketing department to a meeting with the engineers. You can't use the same language in those two meetings.
And sometimes you come across the most mind-blowing things. Last year I was in Japan. I had the pleasure of talking to the dean of a university about IT stuff, and as an IT paradigmologist, I talk in paradigms, models, as lots of us do in IT. And he said, these models of yours, these Western models, he said it very politely. He said, Japanese people don't understand these abstract models. You have to be more pragmatic. and my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they actually, I mean, we do, IT, we're all about numbers, aren't we? We like, you know, we say, okay, your SLA says we've got to fix 95% of your incidents within SLA time. We're doing 97%, so you must be happy.
Yeah.
But that actually doesn't transfer to the customer experience at all.
It's a typical
completely
watermelon
unrelated.
syndrome.
Yeah.
It's green outside, all your SLAs are green, but then it bleeds red. I mean, the customer's bleeding.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, we try to objectify everything.
Yeah.
You've got I think we've got to allow more room for subjective,
Yes.
which I just wasn't I can't explain. I just wasn't satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is the one very good one I've seen more and more often recently. Last time, I think it's Helsinki Airport. The simple, the buttons.
Yes, I've
Oh,
done it.
yes, as you go through,
Smalley
yeah.
Yeah,
faces.
what's the service?
Now, it's not going to tell you
Yeah.
every dimension of service.
Yeah.
It's going to tell you if you've got a problem or not. And I think the other thing we try and do is measure everything.
Yeah.
And we end up measuring nothing that we do.
That's just triggered something. The work that Dave Snowden has done on his Kinefin framework, which I think it's sort of gaining in popularity. It's a way of making sense of the world, whether it's ordered or complex or chaotic, and how to deal with it. He also talks about, and I've got to explore this a bit more, the phenomenon of micro-narratives, short snippets of what people say, capturing those, categorizing them, and making sense of the category. And the key is, he says, getting the people who say things to categorize them, and not having external experts project their interpretation on it. And I think there's great potential with that. I'm speaking with him in a couple of weeks' time, I hope, if we could set up a meeting when he's in the Netherlands.
That's interesting.
Trying to develop how we could use that in IT to make more sense out of what people actually think about the stuff that we're doing.
And of course, there's this strange thing that in IT we measure our own customer satisfaction.
Yes.
We don't go to the business, that's for business to measure us. We genuinely do.
Yeah. No.
We put our own
Metrics and
Yeah.
KPIs and stuff.
Yeah, we select the metrics. We should not be selecting the metrics to say how well we're doing.
No,
It
that's right.
just doesn't make sense.
Recently, I've been hearing a lot about IT for IT, right? I mean, if you look at the whole buzz and people saying IT no longer is relevant, it's not scaling up to what is the demand and business trends and stuff like that. So there's a lot of buzz around IT for IT, enterprise architecture and stuff like that. How do you weigh in the context of the shaping of things? Because you've been in thick and thin of what's happening around in the trend perspective, and feel free to add. IT for IT is creating a buzz. How does it add value to this whole dimension?
I think I know most of the guys, well, certainly some of the guys behind IT for IT, and great respect for their intellectual capacity, particularly Charlie Betts, who's a very great thinker, and the rigor that they've put into thinking about IT service management, using well thought through terminology, so from an architectural perspective, getting something solid. And I think what they've been very clever in using the phenomenon of value streams, which articulate how you actually solve a problem from start to finish. They've got 4 or 5 value streams, which really is a good summary of what you do in IT service management. And very important, there's big money behind it. Companies like Shell who believe in the need to improve the way we do things. So it's a pretty decent likelihood that things will actually move. So give that a thumbs up, certainly. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming along and chatting to us today, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I'd just like to leave you with one thought.
Yes.
We often talk about KPIs in our industry. I've invented the term LPI, and that's life performance indicator.
Yes.
And one of the things, I stole this from the Dalai Lama, as a life performance indicator, happiness and usefulness.
Yeah.
Have you been happy and have you been useful?
Yes.
So I think I'll leave you with that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Looking
Mark.
forward. Thank you.